Good evening. It is Friday, September 11th, 2020. We have a lot to talk about here in the tropics, but as always, these thoughts are mine alone, and in making decisions regarding each of the systems here, please refer to the National Hurricane Center, your local weather office, and your local officials for all the latest information regarding your area. Well, courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, we get this wide shot here of the Atlantic, and you can tell there is a lot to talk about here. We have quite a bit to talk about. We have a area of interest in the Northern Gulf. We have Tropical Depression 19 here. Recon is going in there as we speak, as of the recording of this video. We have Tropical Storm Paulette here. We have dying Tropical Storm Rene here. We have Invest 95L and another area of interest here off of the coast of Africa. So we have quite a bit to talk about here. We're not going to be talking about a couple of these systems as they're not really, worth talking about, especially Rene here. This is kind of a dying tropical system in the middle of nowhere. So not a whole lot to talk about with that. But we're going to be talking about our Gulf area of interest here and our other Gulf area of interest here. Although we're going to kind of be talking about these at the same time, and then we'll talk about Paulette and 95L. So if we look at the area of interest here in the Gulf, and just north of the Bahamas here, we can tell there's a lot of deep convection surrounding this, and it was able to organize a little quicker than expected and actually develop into a tropical depression before it made landfall here on the southeastern coast of Florida. And you can tell that this lower level center is well within this very healthy envelope of convection, and this is continuing to try to organize here. We have evidence of a mid-level circulation, at least, that is on the Miami radar. And if we look at that, courtesy of Mark Nissenbaum, you can see what I'm talking about here. We have a general mid-level circulation here and a lower level center that is trying to form under it. And we do have kind of generally what is a broad and elliptical lower level circulation. This is not exactly super organized right now. You can tell that the flow is generally more kind of trophy here and is not super well organized right now, but this should change. You have southerlies on the northerlies on the western side and some hint of easterlies here and westerlies on the southern side. So we do have a generally present circulation here. This is not very strong and does not have a focused low-level center just yet, but under this mid-level circulation there may be a lower-level circulation trying to form, and the recon is investigating that here in about a couple hours. As we look at this on the models, well, the models have been playing catch-up with this since yesterday, and we have on the GFS analysis a very weak surface trough here. That is not the case. We have wind barbs here that kind of just make it kind of flow like this. That's not true. We have a organized tropical depression here that is just off the coast of Florida. So GFS continues to not be a huge fan of development here, and this likely is why the system remains weak here all the way on approach to the northern Gulf Coast. And this really kind of is playing out similarly to what Hannah did earlier this year, where models continued to have to play catch up with a system that was not on their radar until much later. And really that may be a problem here for the northern Gulf Coast, as a lot of people could be caught off guard here. If we look at the official forecast for the National Hurricane Center, they pin this at about 70 miles an hour on approach to the central Gulf Coast, or central Gulf Coast here. And you can tell there's a lot of variability here as to where exactly this ends up. We have, the Florida Panhandle all the way to the upper Texas Gulf Coast here as a possible landfall point for this system. And since this is approaching at an angle that is not ideal for the Gulf Coast, you kind of have, a very small room for error here, as this could be, 100 miles this way or 100 miles this way here on this track. And so it could have a lot more time over water here, or it could have a lot less time over water here. It all depends on where exactly this emerges and when exactly this northwesterly turn and this westerly turn happens here. And so it depends really on what exactly this does, and the strength of the system varies greatly depending on where exactly it ends up. So if it were to go further west, it would obviously have more time over water, and it would be able to strengthen more than what is currently forecast. If it were to go further east, it would likely be stronger initially, but it would not have enough time to really strengthen substantially here. And that is depicted on the HWRF and HMON models, which are pretty provocative for the Alabama and Pensacola area. So do take those lightly for now, as we do not have recon data into those systems or into those model forecasts. So do be wary that some models are playing catch up here. Since the GFS does show like virtually nothing hitting the central Gulf Coast here, I would take that with a grain of salt, as this level of organization is already present with these systems. So yeah, do be watching as the models do play catch up with this, and you'll eventually have a better intensity forecast here as the certainty narrows down. We're still about 4 days out from impacts here, so please do be watching this and have a plan in place just in case you are in the zone. As always, the impacts of the system stretch way away from the cone here. Impacts anywhere from Matagorda Bay all the way to Cedar Key here in Florida. So a very wide range of the northern Gulf Coast here is in play. Please do watch this as it does come towards you. Anyway, let's get on to, if we go back to the Atlantic wide loop, we have Tropical Storm Paulette here as the sun is setting, and then we have 95L here. And we're going to talk about Paulette first. As you can see, the storm as the sun sets has maintained itself rather well, and actually earlier microwave data suggested that the storm actually had a lower level circulation that was well organized here. As you can see on this microwave imagery, you have some form of an eye here that is trying to develop, which is just crazy to think about considering how much shear this has been encountering. And this shear has not relented. It has just changed direction as it moves around a very large upper level cutoff low now, and is now rotating around the northern side of that. And this shear should continue to weaken. If we go back here on the GFS model, you can see that this cutoff low here is backing away off to the southwest towards Hispaniola, and this continues to decay and not really have too much of an impact on the system as it continues. And you can see that Paulette is able to strengthen rather quickly here into a possibly very powerful tropical cyclone here upon approach to Bermuda. And so this is definitely something that you do need to be watching here if you are in Bermuda, as this could become a major hurricane and is not yet officially forecast to do so, but could become a very powerful hurricane upon approach. And so storm surge, dangerous conditions, and dangerous winds all are expected here. This is the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center showing Paulette doing just that, approaching out of the southeast and eventually turning around the point of which it is impacting Bermuda. And where exactly this turn occurs will help determine how much Bermuda gets. If it turns a little sooner, then it goes east of Bermuda. This is depicted on the European model, and on the GFS model it turns a little later to the west of Bermuda. So right now the general track is smack dab in the middle of these two, and does have a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 110 miles per hour approaching Bermuda and going through the island. And it's a pretty hard target to hit, but again, you are a small target, so the conditions may be either bad or not bad. That's kind of the idea here. But with a larger system, it doesn't really matter too much, and the storm surge will already be pretty high as the system is already moving a lot of water. As you can see, this very large wind field here that has developed, and you can see that if you translate this over the track, I think you're going to get tropical storm force winds no matter what. So just kind of keep that in mind as you are in Bermuda. You should be preparing for something that may be very powerful upon approach. Now 95L. This one has strengthened a little bit here. There's a little bit more certainty here as to what this may be doing. and we have, you know, a western lobe of vorticity and an eastern lobe here, and you're seeing them begin to kind of separate here as this one is trying to eject out to the west, and this one is drifting just a little bit off to the north. And so the solution that was portrayed by the GFS yesterday has seemed to stick here, but we have run into another kind of roadblock in terms of our certainty on the system. If we look at the GFS model forecast, if we back this up a little bit, you can see the analysis has what we were seeing here. We have our lower level, our vorticity here that is a little split along this larger gyre here, and the other area of interest on the far eastern end of that. And you can see as this continues to interact with the other area of interest, you can see the area of interest here that is still off the coast of Africa in our eastern part, and that helps drag the eastern part a little bit to the east and north, and it really merges with the area of interest that just came off of Africa. And so that allows for this western part to really separate here from the eastern part of the system, and the European model and the GFS model both are showing this now. And so there's a little bit more certainty as to what exactly this is going to end up doing here. As for the forward speed of the system, this largely depends on how long it is interacting with this eastern storm of sorts. Both of these end up developing to a storm, and really, how soon it detaches itself from this eastern part of the overall circulation here will really help determine, how fast this is able to go. Previous GFS model had it a lot faster, and so it had it impacting the islands a lot more, and you can see that GFS has been just trending a lot slower and a little weaker here on the 3-day forecast. But, if you have, a system that is here, it's less likely to catch the ridge that, if we look at the European model for 96 hours here, you can see this ridge that would be practically on top of the system if it was over here. But since it is not as close to the system, the system does have a potential to recurve as this ridge begins to kind of decay, and it would not be trapped under the ridge for almost any time. And so we do have a kind of disagreement here between some of the ensembles and the GFS and the European model as to what exactly this does, and the variation on this has been pretty considerable here, and we have very different solutions as a result of this. And, Renee may be playing a part in this. The cutoff trough that develops may actually be, slowing this down a little bit. This interaction may also slow this down. We still have a lot of time here before this does actually play out. And we still have several days before this is really in the discussion of, is this going to impact the islands or not, especially Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles here, as they are first up if a storm comes this way. So there's a lot of time here for you guys to prepare in Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles here and the Virgin Islands, and especially in Hispaniola as well. Please do be watching this as this does come towards you, and it may be something here. This could be a very powerful system here that is now further west here on the GFS. Well, it's not as far west as previous runs had it. As you can see, previous run had, a system here rather than, the current run, which is about 1,000 miles to the east. So, or several hundred miles to the east. So, please do be watching this as this does come towards you. We have a lot of uncertainty regarding the system's exact speed and location and overall track. So, please do refer to the National Hurricane Center for all the latest. This is not developed yet, and we still don't have a very good grip on this. And really, we're not going to have a good grip on this until it does develop and is probably somewhere in this general 40 west to 50 west vicinity here. And what time it reaches this vicinity is, very important as it enters the Central and Eastern Caribbean, or the Central Atlantic and the Eastern Caribbean. But we're going to be watching this for a while here, and we're going to be talking about this for a while, so you're going to hear my voice a lot more, and yeah, this is going to be a lot. and just bear with me as we continue to track this. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.